Hey, good morning. My name's Dr. Rob, the Addiction Doctor, along with Jennifer Lovely, my co-host. Welcome back to the show, guys. We took a few days off, or a few weeks off, to recharge and be ready, but welcome back. How are you doing today, Jen?
I'm doing excellent. I'm coming off of a birthday that was amazing and fun, and I felt loved and all of those things. So it's all is good. I'm excited to be here. When I saw the show starting, I actually got a little teary.
Yeah, me too. It was, in fact, I don't know what it was, but an old show came up on my YouTube, I think, and I'm like, oh God, and I'm getting messages from everybody going, God, you got to start it quick. You got to start it quick. I'm surprised. About 100 emails and texts, Jen. At least that were telling me, where's Jen? Where are you? What are you doing? It's like, we're taking a break, guys. We'll be back. Don't worry. You know, it's all going to be good.
That's cool.
Just a reminder, guys, if you're new to the show, this is about addiction. These are the questions we're going to ask that everybody's thinking, but then ask. It's hardcore because we are hardcore. Addiction is a serious business, and we don't sugarcoat it, because what I found with my 30 years experience and Jen's experience together, because we come together so well, is that when you sugarcoat this stuff, people die, okay? So when we get people like our guest today, Christopher, who comes to the forefront and he's not scared to speak about this, we love that. You know, we've had so many famous people on this show that I want to come up and speak about this, because that's what we need to do. Stop making it a secret. Most of the guys that I know that have succeeded have been addicts or alcoholics, but it's never mentioned. Oh, don't mention you're an alcoholic, Rob. I'm an alcoholic. You know, I've recovered. I'm in the business. I do what I do. I'm proud of it to some extent. So, yeah, that's what it's going to be about. What do you say, Jen?
Well, I think that's so true. And I also, I love the saying that we can love the addict or the alcoholic to death, because I'm a codependent. I will label you and control you and do all of those things. So I'm excited to talk to our guest, because he was speaking straight to my heart around incarceration and addiction and how people don't have a chance. So talk to me about who our guest is, Dr. Rob.
His name's Christopher Paulus. He's obviously and this is the tagline I'm going to use for him, guys. You know, we've had many people on here going from ruins to riches, but the story of Christopher kind of touched me when I watched it, because Courtney's always sending us stuff. Can we do this? Can we do that? And usually it's a no. But I run this video of Christopher, and it kind of blew my mind. He has some amazing stuff to say, you know, and it's kind of not like several guests, and God bless them. We love you guys. And it's not a put down, but it's not like, look at me now. It's a kind of, let's see what we've done, them small steps that I've made over a period of time to the position I'm in now, helping other people. Because most people I know, when they get somebody, like most of the guys I've worked with, you're talking about the highest paid movie stars, rap stars, you know, actors, you know, the guys never call me, never text me, you know, after they leave. And that's just the way it is. We kind of leave, apart from one rapper that texted me about a month ago. I said he was doing well. So exciting show coming up. So guys, listen, get a coffee, sit down, like our stuff, and wait for Christopher to come on. He's just an amazing guy. Guys, we'll be back in less than 15 seconds. Hey guys, welcome back to the show. My name is Dr. Rob, the Addiction Doctor, along with Jennifer Lovely, and our special guest today is Christopher Paulus. Am I saying your last name right, Chris?
You're saying it pretty well. It can be either Poulos or Poulos in the old country of Greece. They would say Poulos.
I love Poulos. Yeah, I like that. Welcome to the show, Chris. Good to see you.
Thank you. Good to see you both. Doing well. How are you all?
We're doing great. It's raining where we are, Christopher.
It's sunny here in Olympia, Washington.
There you go. A few miles away and it's sunny. Oh
yeah,
my goodness. But it was sunny on your birthday, Jen?
Yeah, it was. It was really beautiful. So, Chris, talk to me. Let's just go for it. Talk to me. Tell me, how did this start?
How did my recovery start? How did my current position start? Oh, okay. Rewinding way back. I think that's
Yeah.
actually a great place to start. And it used to take me about an hour to tell this story, and now I think I can do it in about one minute, maybe 1 to 2 minutes. And what happened was, I grew up with my mom was a single mom. There was some, I had some great advantages and was loved, and there were some great challenges and great disadvantages in my family. And I don't think I'm that unique in that. And long story short, when I was about 11, 12 years old, or somewhere in there, I discovered alcohol and drugs, and I quickly realized that I didn't feel like I fully was at peace or fit in or knew how to talk to girls. I felt like something wasn't quite right within me. I don't know that I have that fully figured out to this day. I think I've made some progress. And what happened was, as soon as the first, prescription pills, alcohol in particular, when it went down through my throat and into my lungs, and I started to feel it coursing through my veins. And what I found was all of those inadequacies and pain and everything else, and later trauma, as soon as that substance hit my bloodstream, it just went, and everything went away. And I chased that for the next decade. And it brought a lot of for a while it worked for me. I was able to find relief through substances, through self-medicating, through prescription pills, illegal drugs. Alcohol was my constant friend through all of it. And at age 24, I got to a point where I could no longer find relief from the substances. And I knew I had to either, to put it bluntly, either seek help or no longer keep on living. At 24, that's where I was at. And thank God I decided to seek help.
That's awesome. I heard a story, and it was actually you doing a TEDx talk. Tell the viewers, or tell the story of that day in federal prison when the election was on and Obama won the election. Tell me, because that really put hairs on the back of my neck, stood up. You're in a prison full of black people. You're the only white guy there. Tell that story for us, Chris, please.
Sure. So I was at the Lewisburg Federal Prison Camp. I had been at several different places already, county jails, the maximum security federal detention center in Brooklyn, behind the wall briefly at Lewisburg Penitentiary. And then ultimately, because I was minimum security, I did get to spend my time at a prison camp, most of it. And I certainly wasn't the only white guy there, but I happened to be the only white guy who was still awake in my unit when it became evident that Senator Barack Obama in 2008 was going to become the first black president of the United States. And one of the men in that room with me had actually marched with Dr. King during the civil rights movement. His name is Marvin, and tears were just streaming down Marvin's face. And kind of a funny twist is that's like the kind of really fun, or powerful part. The kind of fun part is, everybody thought we were all going home right after that, like right away. Right? He was just going to come in and everyone was going to go home. And it didn't quite work out that way. But I'll tell you what, about a year later, the crack law was changed. The discrepancy between crack cocaine and powder cocaine was revised. And sure enough, men, primarily black men, who had been sentenced to these absurd sentences for these are not kingpins, right? These are people at very low level distribution, sentenced to 20 years, 30 years, 40 years. And they actually did start getting released. So it wasn't the day after Obama was elected, but it did happen, and people started to go home. And not as a result of that law, I did have to serve my regular sentence, but I ultimately went home too. And I remember that night as one of the most powerful experiences of my life. I take that experience with those men over any fancy election night party in DC any day.
So talk to me about what got you into prison. Besides, it sounds like drugs got you into prison, but talk to me about, what went. What went down that got you in?
Sure. So I think it's really important to note that I got sober, or at least mostly sober. I got sober-ish before I was indicted on federal charges, and that's what made the huge difference in my life. So when I was backing up to when I said I was 24 years old and I sought help, and I was able to get off of the alcohol, opiates, cocaine, benzos. I got off everything except Adderall, which I struggled with for a while in my early recovery, but ultimately got off that too. And then I got a job at a call center. I'm 24. I was in the process of getting back into college. I had taken some college classes, and I moved back into my mom's house. And when I sought help, my mom, who had thrown me out of the house during my active addiction, and I actually experienced homelessness for a while as a high school student, which was tough, trying to make it to high school when you don't know where you're going to sleep or shower or change your clothes or anything else. But anyway, when I was 24, I told a doctor at least most of the truth about my addiction, and I detoxed on a mattress in my mom's empty room and went through that process. And through God's grace, I have not had to go through that horrible process again. And about 6 months later, right, I'm working my own recovery program. I had, thank goodness, I didn't have insurance, but I was able to go into outpatient treatment with the state. And the state that cost taxpayers probably several $1,000s overall, versus just an exorbitant amount of money to have me in and out of hospitals and stuff like that. And so anyways, I'm on this journey of recovery, and several months into it, my house, I got a phone call. I will tell this story. I got a phone call from a private number, and I answered it. And the guy said, Hey, Chris, it's me, Matt. And I said, Matt, who's Matt? He said, man, it's me, Matt. What's going on? I said, listen, tell me who this is, or I'm hanging up the phone. He said, Chris, this is Special Agent Matt Walbridge, FBI, Boston. Why don't you take a look outside your window and then come on out? Just like that. And I opened the shades of my mother's house. My little brother, he's still a kid. He's outside playing with a friend. And our home was surrounded by federal agents. And so began my journey in recovery through the federal judicial system and federal prison. I was charged with cocaine distribution, obviously for conduct that occurred prior to my life change, and also possession of a firearm in furtherance of drug trafficking, which that charge was ultimately dismissed. But I did end up going to, long story short, went to federal prison for a first time nonviolent, relatively low level cocaine offense, which I did in fact do. I did what they said I did.
Phenomenal, absolutely phenomenal. Talk to me about the conversation in that office with Reza.
Sure. So for some context for the viewers, Reza Jalali was the director of the University of Southern Maine's cultural or refugee and immigrant cultural type program for students that are coming here from other countries. And his office was next to the office I worked in as an undergrad, as a student legal services intern. And at this point, I was completely private about my background. I didn't want to, I was told that if I opened up about the fact that I'd been to federal prison, that it would really, ruin my career. And you don't have to be defined by addiction. You can just put that all behind you. And so I was very private about it. But I wanted to go to law school, and something about Reza invited me to talk to him about my goal of going to law school. And I didn't know this at the time, and I don't think I shared this in the TEDx talk that you had mentioned earlier. But Reza, I later found out, was a political prisoner in Iran and held in confinement himself before he escaped the regime and became an exile. And now I know why I felt comfortable going to Reza. So that story hasn't been widely reported. I felt this connection with him. And so he introduced me to the dean, and we thought it would be a really kind of a celebratory, joyous occasion. This guy's now been in recovery now for several years, turned my life around, exited prison, sponsoring guys, mentoring people, mentoring youth at the juvenile correctional facility, doing all sorts of stuff. And now I want to go to law school. And Race is like, I'd love to introduce you to the dean. And so we meet the dean, and I was incredibly nervous. This fancy, what I considered a very fancy office, with a view of the ocean, at least the bay, these fancy leather couches. I'm just not I wasn't at that point used to being in spaces like that. That's why I bring up these details. It was just odd for me to even be in that office. And I was used to getting like thrown out of people's cars because I was throwing up in the back seat, right? That's like normal for me, not being in a law school dean's office. And so the dean said, Chris, we've been told that you came from a diverse background, and we love diversity here at the law school. So why don't you tell us a little bit about your diversity? And I started with sharing how, my mom was a single mom. I experienced homelessness as a teenager for a little bit, and he's kind of like nodding along. And then I said, I suffered from addiction, and he's kind of a little less enthusiastic, but still like, okay. And then I knew I'd have to disclose it, right? Anyway, so I told him I'd been in prison. And when I said that, it was like a wall went up between us. I felt like I felt othered, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
And, he said that, isn't there any other professions that you might be interested in besides the law? Maybe you could be a social worker or an advocate of some kind, but the law is a very guarded profession, and I'm just not sure how the community would receive you. And he wasn't trying to, in retrospect, he actually wasn't really trying to just shut down my dreams, but it felt that way to me at the time. We have a great relationship now, so I think it's good to provide a little more context. But that's how it felt at the time to me. I felt like he was just shutting me down. And I think the first time in my life, I stood up for myself in both a respectful and assertive manner. And that's so important to share with people who are listening, is that we don't have to be doormats in recovery. We can stand up for ourselves. We can share our truth. We can be proud of who we are today. But we also don't have to be rude in doing it, and we don't have to throw chairs or run away. Or, I think everybody's default initially is fight, flight, or freeze. Mm-hmm. And this moment was defining in my life because I didn't fight, flight, or freeze. I said to him, Dean, the judge didn't give me a life sentence. So why are you giving me a life sentence here today by basically telling me that the law isn't for me? And when I said that, the wall that I described between us didn't immediately come tumbling down, but a few bricks fell off the top. That's how I felt, because I could see him within his own head reflecting and saying, I can't speak for him, but what I felt like I was going on inside his brain was, who am I to tell this young man that the law isn't for him? And ultimately, the admissions council did vote unanimously in my favor, and that same dean chaired that admissions committee. So wow. He came around.
Wow. That's amazing. Mm. So obviously you're a lawyer. And one of the things, but I have 2 children that are recovering heroin addicts, and my oldest son came out of jail and with several felonies. And one of the things is he was a cook for a year at, a little restaurant, he didn't think he couldn't, that was the only job he could get. And for him, it was like, he followed the path of more will be revealed, and he really allowed God and his life to guide him. And eventually he found this amazing job. Somebody gave him an opportunity, and he's making 6 figures today. Now, that's not normal. right? I mean, that doesn't always just happen. So talk to me about how we help recovering addicts coming out of prison or jail that we're looking at or spent, long sentences, or we're looking at 10-year sentences. That's what both of my kids were looking at, were 10-year prison sentences. Talk to me how we help them. How do we support them to, they've made bad choices, they've gotten in trouble, they've, whatever their charges were, and they didn't get life sentences, but our society gives them life sentences.
Right. Great question, and thank you for sharing that with us. I found, and this is another thing that used to take me an hour to describe, and I've got it down to one sentence, and it's that successful reentry occurs when internal healing and growth is met with external opportunity. And that is my quote. So sometimes I quote other people, but I invented that one. And what I mean by that is, we can provide people with a job, an apartment, transportation, cell phone, all of that stuff. But if we're still suffering from untreated trauma, substance use disorder, PTSD, et cetera, and all of that is unresolved, then those outside resources alone are not going to be sufficient. And vice versa, somebody could, have worked this amazing program while they were incarcerated and basically be kind of levitating around, right, spiritually. If they don't have a place to sleep and they don't have employment and they don't have health insurance, that's also not sustainable. Right. So it's that combination. And what we can do is we can look at barriers to reentry, like, housing discrimination. Do you have a felony conviction? Have you ever been arrested? All of that stuff, which is intended either for business purposes or at least in theory for public safety, is actually generally detrimental to public safety. That's the irony. It's not that it's just not helpful. Those barriers are generally actually detrimental to public safety, because if somebody cannot get employment, meaningful employment with a living wage, and cannot access education, healthcare, rent an apartment, eventually, out of necessity, we will revert to survival skills that are going to harm society and harm people. So working with our local, city officials, legislators, advocates, stuff like that, to support efforts to remove those types of barriers to reentry is probably one of the most important things we all can do.
Mm-hmm.
That makes so much sense. So much sense. So in an ideal world, Chris, pertaining to incarceration and recovery and the system as a whole with new rules and regulations, what would you like to see?
In an ideal world, from my perspective, is that substance use disorder, addiction, mental illness would all be treated as public health issues. And that's not to say that people I feel like there's some kind of on the far left progressive that, they say don't put people in the criminal legal system, but it ends up just being the problem is just ignored, basically, and it pretends that it doesn't exist. And then we have people on the other end of the spectrum who are just arrest them, just get them off the streets and everything will magically be fine, right? And I'm in neither one of those camps, so to speak. I think that, looking at early structured interventions, providing people with solutions, providing people with opportunities, increasing access to alternatives to jail and prison sentences are essential. And then if someone is in prison or jail, how are people spending their time? Are they sweeping the floor of the bathroom and playing cards, or are they learning a trade? Are they getting access to higher education? Are they doing deep trauma work? And all that stuff may sound expensive. It's vastly less expensive to provide all of that than it is to not. When you look at, looking at things from a chess angle rather than a checkers angle. And so that's what I'd say. And then, of course, I think we've covered a bit is once people get out, welcoming people home as returning community members rather than ex-cons or ex-felons or ex-anything else. Like, I'm not an ex-teenager, right? We don't say that. We don't say ex-pregnant person. We say mother, we say returning individual, we say adult, but those harmful labels that follow us can sabotage and even self-sabotage our futures.
Yeah.
Self-sabotage is huge. Sorry, Jen.
No, it's okay.
Self-sabotage is huge from the studying I've done, because I study the brain, neuroplasticity, neural pathways, and the addicted brain. And self-sabotage is one. So if we're always putting alcoholic and addicts down and not giving them a chance, there's no ways that going to turn around. When we change neural pathways from self-sabotage to self-care, ambition, and walking forward, that's when the alcoholic and addicts success. We have a 97% success rate, because we don't stick people away for 30 days and expect them to change. It isn't going to change. The people around me ain't going to change. I have to change inside. So knowledge is powerful. So when people come out of a 30-day treatment and they relapse on the way home, that's what me and Jan get together and said, look, we need to cover this. There's we're not doing something right here. So our IOP is purely telehealth, and it's for everybody around the world when they come out to go, stop. You've just been locked up. That's all it is. You have no tools, because the brain hasn't changed. And if the brain hasn't changed, then you will all have that obsessive thinking. Then as soon as the alcohol or drug enters your body, then the body gets sick. Now you crave for the drug and you're going round and round and round again. Let's get back to the trauma. Let's get back to the childhood trauma. Let's clear all that up and let's move forward and build you up for a life beyond your wildest dreams. You don't want to go back to that $5 an hour job. What the hell's that? You might as well go drinking and using, is what we tell them. But it's the I was born self-sabotaging, Chris. There's alcoholism in my family. It's a predisposition for me. Every opportunity I will do myself in wherever I can, and that needs to change. And that's what people don't understand. If it doesn't change, the same behavior will happen again.
Right. I agree.
Yeah. So I'm really curious. One of the ways that, I tell myself this, maybe I just tell myself this because it makes me feel better, but I did a lot of work in recovery. If my kids were going to go into recovery, and one of the stipulations of getting out of jail was they had to go into recovery. My kids went to 16 different rehabs. Let's just say it didn't really work, right? But one of the ways that I believe it worked was me getting my own help, me doing my own 12 steps, me doing the deeper work of what was going on inside of our family that caused part of this dysfunction. So I'm curious, did your mom do work? Did she get curious about herself? And have you guys been able to, heal all of the pain of that?
We've definitely done a lot of healing. I'm in a 12-step recovery program too. So I went through making amends to my family and some friends and some other folks as well. And that was a really powerful and ongoing experience. There's the actual amends conversation. And then there's what I call, or this is not my term, but living amends, living a different way. And the strongest example I'd give of that is when my grandmother, who was a just pivotal figure in helping me through both my active addiction and my recovery, largely without judgment, but only in a supportive way, was when my grandmother died, and I had just started my new position out here in Washington State, so about 3.5 years ago, and she died pretty unexpectedly. And what would have happened is, in my active addiction, I would have centered myself in that. I would have been a victim. I would have made, ran just a tornado through everybody's life and added stress to what everyone was already dealing with. In recovery, and now in some level of financial stability and professional stability, I was able to be on the next plane from Seattle to Maine to get her affairs in order, to help deal with the literal things that you have to do when a family member dies. And I was able to organize the services and get people, fly my brother up from Texas who needed some help with the plane ticket, little things like that. That's to me what the repairing the relationships is really about. And by doing that, my family was also able to heal. And my mom did come when I had intensive outpatient, back in 2007, before I even went to prison. My mom came to to family day. And I think that's super important, all of that. But it really is that maintaining that ongoing relationship through living differently. And, our family members come to me all the time. What can I do about my son, my daughter? How do I fix him or, help him? And my advice is pretty simple. It's, make sure they're aware that there's another way to live. Make sure that there's aware that if there's ever even this tiny willingness to try something different, because the pain gets to that level, make sure you're ready to just jump on that and help facilitate the growth of that, because ultimately their actions are not within our control.
Yeah.
But to make sure that they're aware that there's a solution, and then if and when that moment comes, they know what to do. And they're not, I'm sick of this, but I don't know what to do. And so thankfully, when I got sober, it was because I knew what to do.
I love that. I love it. And communication, guys. Talk to each other. Chris, I really want to continue this for the next 3 days because you're such an interesting guy, but we've run out of time, unfortunately. So I want to say just an incredible story. What an incredible guy. And we want to thank you, and I'm sure I'll speak with Jennifer for this. We want to thank you for the work you do. We want to thank you for the work that you've done. You say in life today, nobody thanks each other. So we go through that work and it can be a lonely place. So we want to thank you. And we're so grateful for you as a person and fighting and standing up, despite the odds against you. Are you kidding me, attorney? You got to be joking. Thank you for that, Chris. We'll definitely have you back. But from me now, I want to say thank you so much and we'll see you again.
Thank you both very much.
Yeah, thank you, Chris. And also, I just am curious, what do you want people to know? What do you want to leave them with?
I would leave people with, the fact that recovery is possible. Barriers after prison are detrimental to success, and that, people in recovery and formerly incarcerated people can do great things. We just need to be supported, and we need to believe in ourselves.
Awesome.
Thank you so much.
Hey guys, I've just stuck the Facebook page from Christopher. If you want to click on that, or send me and me and Jennifer will forward it on to you. Check his Facebook out. Such an amazing guy. And guys, we'll be right back after this. Welcome back to the show, guys. Christopher Paulus. I got his name right before. Awesome guy. Absolutely awesome guy. Listen, guys, if you're sat at home and thinking, I like this recovery business, I want to get into it, or you're an alcoholic and addict where you can't work for anybody else because you have so many stays in prison or felonies, listen, why don't you work for yourself? The Ultimate Recovery Coaching and Transformational Program, that's me and Jen, are starting new courses in June. We're just halfway through one now. You can change your life. We'll teach you all about brain spotting. We'll teach you all about going back and clearing up the wreckage. We'll teach you all about the inner child. We'll give you tools and everything you need to move on and secure that employment if that suits you. But what a great show, Jen.
That was fun. I really enjoyed talking to him. He's a wealth of information. And I also wanted to say on the Ultimate Recovery Coaching and Transformation is that this isn't just about you becoming a recovery coach. This is also about you recovering, really understanding that this is also a transformational program for you to understand all about yourself and really going back and looking at how you are surviving out there in the world and how your survival mechanisms really can dominate your life, and that you can actually live inside of your essence and change your life. We are just graduating an amazing group of people, and their lives are changed. They'll never be the same.
Exactly. So, beautiful. Helping people is beautiful. And don't forget, guys, the IOP that we run is telehealth only. So wherever you are in the world, give me an hour a day or give Jen an hour a day, and we're going to change your life. We guarantee that you can recover. In actual fact, hold on to your seats now while I say something you're not going to believe. If you don't, we'll refund your money. Shut up. You've not just said that, Dr. Rob, have you? Yeah, let's get serious about it. Why are you going into the same treatment center for 4 or 5 times and still paying the same money? No.
Right.
No, we have the solution, guys. Look us up, Rob Kelly Recovery Group or robkelly.com and jenniferlovely.com. We're here to help. And if anybody's sat at home now watching this and feeling down, you don't think you're good enough, you don't think you will amount to anything, you don't think you can fit in, first of all, I want to apologize to you. Somebody's put that there. But call us. Give me a quick call, me and Jen. We'll give you a 5-minute pep talk. That'll change your life. Not going to cost you anything. I'm going to try and sell you anything. You know, it's one person helping another. That's all we do. We're here to help. So don't forget, guys, the Ultimate Recovery Coaching. Look us up and visit our websites, of course, and all our social media. Give us a like. And we'll see you next Friday. I'm not too sure who's on, Jen. Do you? Next Friday?
I don't know who's on.
I knew that. So there's 2 things about having two assistants. There's 2 things about having 2 assistants. First of all, they look after your day and your calendar and your diary. It's amazing. The bad thing about that, I have no idea, me and Jen, what we're doing tomorrow. That's all sorted out for us. So we get our day at 8 o'clock tonight. So if you're still on at 8 tonight, I'll pop on, tell you what I've got going on tomorrow.
All right. Bye, guys.
Bye, guys. Take it easy. And don't forget, empowered people empower people.
Oh.